Hello my friends, and welcome to the channel for another Escape from Tarkov video. In this one, I've got some builds to share with you that take advantage of the flea market to make some deceptively simple yet surprisingly effective weapon setups. The flea market is an ever-changing place, with prices rising and falling depending on the day and sometimes even the hour that you visit it. While this makes it a somewhat volatile market, if you know what to look for and snap up any deals that you can catch before other players, you can use it to build things that you otherwise wouldn't have access to, sometimes for surprisingly reasonable prices. While the traders certainly have more stability, the flea market allows you to access great weapons that other players have looted, as well as great attachments that other players have looted, often for lower prices than the traders will ever offer. In this video, I want to cover some of the best bang for your buck builds that you can set up using the flea market, and mostly level 2 traders. I'll do future versions of this video with the market and level 3 or 4 traders, but for this one I'll be focusing on level 2 traders. To start this one off, let's take a look at the SCAR-L, the 5.56 version of the SCAR rifle. This one is available from the traders, but you're looking at around $700 to $900 to pick one up from Peacekeeper or Mechanic. On the flea market, however, the SCAR is usually around 50 to 60,000 rubles, so that's a significant discount. Keep in mind that the SCAR is available in 2 different color variations, so if the tan SCAR is going up in price, you can often check out the black one and it will be cheaper, or vice versa. The SCAR is a great weapon to grab off the market because it doesn't require a lot of modding to improve the build and get access to great utility. The SCAR comes with pre-attached rails, so you don't really need to mess around with getting rails and extra handguards or stocks. In fact, after the recoil rework, you can easily just put a red dot sight on a SCAR and have a very simple 5.56 gun that runs pretty smoothly. For this build, however, we're going to upgrade the SCAR a bit with some attachments from level 2 traders and a suppressor off the flea market. To start off, replace the default muzzle device with the KAC QD compensator. This will then allow you to grab a KAC NT4 suppressor off of the flea market and attach that onto the compensator. Now you're running suppressed and you got a big recoil reduction. Next, at level 2 skier, you can get the SCAR SRX rail extension, an inexpensive part that gives you a nice ergonomics boost for the build. After that, I attach the X400 flashlight onto the side rail and a Zenit RK4 grip onto the bottom rail of the SCAR to add some extra stats onto the build. The last piece that you really need is a sight, and luckily the SCAR can take basically any optic in the game, so you have a huge selection. If you found a magnified scope in a weapon crate or bought one off the market, the SCAR works great with that, but I tend to use red dots or hollow sights. The SCAR is a very versatile weapon in Tarkov, and it will definitely feature in future videos as well. The 5.56 MDR can take a build very similar to this, but it has a much higher flea market price right now, so for my money in the mid game, I would take the SCAR. Next up for this video, I've got a build that I bet many don't really consider when thinking about early to mid game weapons, the 45 caliber Vector SMG. Now there's a few reasons for this. The Vector is probably seen as an expensive build by most players. It fires so fast that I bet some people just don't want to burn through that ammo so quickly. And most importantly, you technically can't buy the 30 round Vector mags until skier level 3. However, the Vector is surprisingly cheap on the flea market, dropping as low as 30,000 rubles because most players will just sell theirs on the market when they find them. Most likely because they don't realize that you can actually trade for the 30 round magazines at level 2 skier for 1 pack of Strike cigarettes. These are only about 5 to 6,000 rubles on the market, so the mags actually end up being pretty cheap to acquire. With level 2 Peacekeeper, you can buy the 45 FMJ rounds, and when loaded up into the 30 rounders and fired at 1100 RPM into a PMC, these tend to send them back to the lobby with record speed. I was very surprised at how much more controllable the Vector is after the recoil rework, so I definitely recommend giving it a try. First off, you want to replace the default muzzle device on the Vector with the direct thread Omega suppressor adapter from Mechanic level 2. Then you can buy the Omega 45 suppressor for only about 20 to 30,000 rubles on the flea market. After you get the suppressor onto the Vector, you just need to add a foregrip and a light or laser. I've got a Zenit RK4 grip on here for extra recoil control, and then an X400 flashlight. That really is all you need to get a 45 caliber Vector up and running by level 20. And you can even just leave the suppressor off the build to make it a surprisingly cheap SMG that will absolutely melt other PMCs on maps like Factory. After the Vector, I have to also quickly mention another little bullet hose SMG, the MP9-N, a tiny little 9mm SMG that fires at around 1000 RPM. Much like the Vector, the recoil rework kind of revolutionized this little thing, and it's surprisingly controllable now. You can fire full auto bursts and hit pretty much on target every time. It's really quite easy to control. You can get the MP9 from the flea market for usually around 30 to 40,000 rubles, sometimes even less. Once you buy one, all you need to do is add the MP9 suppressor adapter and the MP9 suppressor from Mechanic Level 2. This is the only major upgrade that the build needs. After that, you can add a light or a laser onto the rails, and then grab yourself a cheap red dot sight and you are good to go. For the next build in this video, we're going back to the assault rifles with a quick look at the RPK-16, the big brother to the AK-74M, and a weapon that's always been kinda slept on. The RPK-16 has rails on the handguard and dust cover to take sights and tactical devices, so you don't need extra parts to add attachments. The RPK also takes all the magazines and ammo that AK-74 rifles do, so you can get mags easily, and the ammo is very common to find in large boxes throughout Tarkov. You can usually find it on the flea market for about 50 to 60,000 rubles, and with a few simple upgrades you can make quite good builds out of it. First up, swap out the muzzle device for the Zenit DTK1 compensator to lower the recoil. Next, you can add a Zenit RK4 grip onto the handguard for even more recoil control, and then something like a Balder Pro flashlight or a laser for some utility. You can also swap out the buttstock on the RPK if you want even lower recoil. At Peacekeeper Level 2, you can get the Chris DS150 stock, which is a good upgrade from the default RPK stock and gets you some extra recoil reduction and ergonomics. Finally, you just need a sight, and the RPK can take basically any sight in Tarkov on the dust cover. For this build, I just have the Cobra reflex sight from Jaeger as a cheap red dot optic that fits with the Russian aesthetic of the RPK. Overall, the RPK matches or exceeds a mid-tier AK-74 build for about the same price, but with a very different look. I'd love to include the AK-12 in here because it's very similar but even easier to build, but you need level 3 proper to fix them up off the market, so that one will probably be in the next video. To round out this collection of builds, I want to make the argument that the RFB is still a pretty solid recommendation for people with level 2 traders, even though you can't really buy it from the traders anymore, and the good mid-game ammo BCP FMJ has been moved to level 3 traders. While you can't buy it from level 2 traders anymore, you can still buy it on the flea market, and this thing is often lower than 40,000 rubles while I've been looking for it on the market. That's a pretty good price for a 7.62x51 rifle, and you can buy the 20 round mags for it from either Peacekeeper or Mechanic Level 2, so you aren't stuck with 10 round mags. The RFB doesn't take very many attachments, so the builds are really simple, and then you can buy the TCW SP rounds from Skier Level 2, which do have 30 pen, so they are technically as good or better than most of the other bullets you can buy at this level. Overall, I think the RFB is still a good choice for players in the mid-game, especially for running big open maps like Shoreline, Woods, and Lighthouse. First up, grab an RFB off the flea market, and then you can attach the RFB thread spacer onto the barrel, which lets you add muzzle devices. Next, I grab the AR-10 KAC flash suppressor from Peacekeeper Level 2 and add that onto the barrel for an accuracy boost and some recoil reduction. After that, I attach a Zenit RK4 grip to bring the recoil down just a little bit more. Finally, you just need to pick an optic for the RFB. If you have plenty of rubles, grabbing an Elcan Spectre scope off the flea market gives you a lot of utility with access to 1 and 4 times modes. However, if you want to keep it nice and budget friendly, I recommend looking on the flea market for the Swamp Fox 3.5 times scope, which is very often selling for 20,000 rubles or less. You can also run the RFB with a red dot sight, so you have lots of options for it. And I really think the only limiting factor for this one in the mid game is ammo. But you can find better 7.62 ammo in Raid or just make do with TCW SP. Well, that pretty much covers it for these builds, and I hope it was a decent crash course in some builds that you can set up using the flea market. There's a whole arsenal of other builds in Tarkov that I need to keep checking out, so expect more videos like this. Let me know what your favorite flea market weapon purchases are. Is there something that I missed that you think is amazing for the value? Thanks for checking out the video. I've got links to my Twitch stream and Discord server down below for anyone interested. And until next time, stay safe in Tarkov City.